horses, but it wasn't anything like wild horses on the prairie. They were just horses that weren't trained perfectly, and they were relatively safe for young people to ride. And she had a wonderful policy, a wonderful way with kids, and a wonderful way with horses. And she owned quite a number of horses, but she would lease them to children in the community who didn't have their own horse on a monthly basis. And they would pay pasturage, and then that horse was just like theirs for a month. And they could buy feed, extra feed for it. They could do anything they wanted to with it. It was their responsibility as well as their privilege to take care of the horse, and then they could ride it all they wanted to. And so as soon as I could, I saved up enough money to pay pasturage on a horse and rented a horse from her for a month, and did that the whole time I was here. And then I would spend my afternoons as soon as school was out. And unlike Claude, I was kind of glad for school to get out, because I'd rather be riding horses than than a lot of the things they offered at school. But school wasn't a punishment so much for me here. I did enjoy school, and I felt comfortable with the other students. I felt comfortable with the teachers. Now, I had always been able to get along pretty good with teachers, but there was a difference here in that I did seem to fit in with the other students, and that was very, very valuable to me, because I hadn't been able to feel a part of any group or feel a part of any school situation. And I felt so strongly about it that when I thought I had changed, I thought I had grown up, and I thought it was just the difference in me. Claude's oldest son, Paul, was in the class with me. He was one of the better folk dancers, and he was one of the better students in arts and crafts. And unlike Claude, Paul did have a knack for working with clay. And I remembered my first day in arts and crafts, and the Miss Bell was teaching arts and crafts, and she had everybody sit down and paint a picture. And I didn't much like the idea of painting pictures. And then Paul came in, and she told Paul to go wedge some clay to get it ready. And I couldn't help but resent that, because, oh, I would love to work with the clay, and here I was having to sit here and paint this dumb picture. And I quickly figured out how, next year I was the one that got to do the clay wedging the first day of school, so I didn't have to paint that introductory picture. But it was easy. I mean, it wasn't a case of some people were privileged. Paul knew how to wedge clay. He had been here. I was new. But mostly in arts and crafts, we were allowed to do the things that we wanted to. She would bring up things, and we could try different projects, whatever new opportunity, whatever was new out that she had supplies for, she'd try to get us all to try it. But as far as what we stuck with, we could work on just about anything we wanted to. And I did quite a bit of work with clay. I did quite a bit of work with etching, metal etching, and then I did, when I graduated from high school, and I'm skipping a couple of years, but when I graduated, the students weren't making their rings, and they bought rings that year, and it just bothered me. I had been away from the school for 2 years, and yet when I was in school, in junior high and freshman year of high school, I had gotten to where I was friends with the upperclassmen, and I had watched them make their rings, and oh, it was just something I had looked forward to for years and years. So when I came back as a senior and I found out that all the seniors had ordered these class rings, I didn't want to do that. And there was, at that time, Barbara Hoffman didn't want to order her class ring either. So we persuaded Miss Bell to order the silver for us. And we made our class rings in the arts and crafts room here on campus. And I know we were the only ones in our graduating class that got to make our rings, but she worked with us diligently, and it wasn't her specialty, but she supported us in every way she could. And we were very, very proud of our rings. I think Barbara still has her ring, and I've got a picture that with my ring on, but I don't have the ring. I haven't been able to find it.
I have a ring that I made for my granddad.
Yeah.
I get, you know, practically nobody on the campus ever said Mrs. Johnson. She was known as Aunt Nettie. And she liked to wear a long sweater that would reach about halfway between her knees and hips, or maybe closer to the knees. And it would have pockets like that jacket there. And she'd go around with her hands in the pockets, but the pockets were always full of things. I never did have any idea just what, but I've seen her, somebody stop and she'd pull something out of the pocket and talk and hand it to them, and somebody hand her something that went in the pocket. I often wondered how many things she would accumulate in those pockets in the day. And I look around at these pictures, and the only picture here that I think that I remember is that one up there, that highest, that picture over there on the north wall. To me, that is what Marietta Johnson looked like when I knew her. Now, whether that's a photograph or a painting, I'm not sure, but it looks, that, as I say, that's the picture that appeals to me as looking most like Marietta Johnson.
This was taken from a picture in one of the yearbooks in the stenograph. You want to hold it and get a picture of it.
Mm-hmm. But she was, I guess, you know, she was too old to have still been an attractive woman, but she was sweet. I don't mean physically attractive, but she was very sweet and certainly interesting, and was interesting even to us kids. And I was a child, and of course never had an adult association with Mrs. Johnson, which I rather regret. Some years later, some years after, I don't remember, but at some point, some years after I went in business for myself, somebody asked me if I would accept a seat on the board of managers for the organic school, and I did. And I stayed on the board for several years, but I feel that Mrs. Johnson's, one of her favorite sayings was, "It doesn't matter what happens, it only matters how you meet it." And that has been a sort of totem for me.
Are you both very happy of your experience in the school?
Absolutely. I am. I'm not, if Diane's not, she's never let me know it.
Well, I had always wanted a home, and so my dad remarried for the third go-round in 1956 and persuaded me to move to Pensacola so I could have a family life. And I knew that I loved school here, but like I said, I thought I had changed, and so I didn't think the school made that much difference. And by that time, I had rented a horse from Blanche Brown and enjoyed riding with Blanche and all her wild kids, and I survived. And the idea of moving to Pensacola appealed to me because I would have a home life. Living in the school home in those years and now that I look back on it, was really a real good experience. We had an opportunity to have regular meals, we had a regular bedtime, and there was somebody there that we could depend on. Although none of the house mothers that they had when I was at the organic school appealed to me or were able to get much of my confidence, gain much of my confidence.